Welcome to the Baseball Insiders, coming at you early on a Monday morning because we got to get out here ahead of the deadline, ahead of several pieces of news that could drop later today. We're going to give you the best insight we can as the offseason gets started with an early bang. Michael Wacha back to the Royals. Gerrit Cole opted out. Predictable, even though I think some people were caught a little bit off guard by that. We'll talk about what the decision means and any other bits of dope from fan-sided MLB insider Robert Murray. Robert, thank you for joining me as we get going. This is the first of many somewhat frantic offseason related shows, and you are flying to the GM meetings this week to pick up even more.
No, I definitely am. We got the offseason in full swing already. We have offseason stuff coming today with options, qualifying offer, you name it. Michael Wacha signing his deal yesterday. I got some stuff about that one. Both good and bad, mostly bad. That's not because of the deal, but because of my own personal doing. But Adam Weinrib, it's good to be here with you again. How are you doing?
Good to be here with you as well at, again, our favorite time. I mean, look, the winter meetings is my number one. The December, it's the best month of the Baseball Insiders, but November, also a pretty great one, and we are off to an interesting start. Again, I don't think most of us expected that there would be this much action before even the ability of teams to negotiate with outside free agents. So again, don't believe any offers you've read to outside free agents. Those can't come before this afternoon, but plenty doing regardless. And no better time to join the Discord, where you can ask Robert and I questions between shows. You could be a Rumor Mill member or an All-Star member. We are working on perks for the All-Stars, but expect a lot more questions being answered for you All-Stars in the coming months, and we're going to have some designated question responding times, I believe, in that chat, making that chat valuable. Also, priority responses in this chat, so come to us early, drop your questions off, we'll make sure to get to you. Also, subscribe to the Moonshot if you haven't. It's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the fan-sided MLB team, including Robert Murray, will break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info, so check your inboxes for that. Let's go with the Royals first, just because I know we have insight on the largest deal signed so far for sure. Michael Wacha, 3 years, $51 million. They maintain their Ragans-Lugo-Wacha rotation. That is how you compete. If you have three of the top 10 pitchers in the American League and you got Bobby Witt Jr. and Lugo picking up a Gold Glove over the weekend, you keep that rotation together and keep building. I would say another inspiring small market effort by the Kansas City Royals.
No, it was a very smart move by the Royals. And first of all, to answer questions in the comments, yes, I will be at the GM meetings. I fly out in a few hours, so I will be there. I'll be on the ground meeting with all sorts of different people, and I can assure you that the second show this week, can't remember what day it's going to be, I think maybe Friday, is going to be packed with info. It is going to be pretty crazy. It'll be Friday. Our producer Joanne tells us. So that is the news. That is the scoop there. But as far as the Royals go, they were very aggressive in extending Michael Wacha, and everything that I've gathered is that was their top priority internally. Is they viewed him as a key piece in that rotation, but also in that clubhouse as well. He obviously has been durable. He has been dependable. They ended up signing him last year. When they ended up having their big free agent splurge. And it was, I think, a move that really paid off more dividends than they could have expected. And they got it done early, got it signed for $17 million a year with an option for a fourth year. I would fully expect them to be aggressive this offseason. I think they'll have more money to spend. I think they'll try to improve the offense, get another weapon in there alongside Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. But this was a priority. They got it done. The bad part of this was that I had the scoop yesterday. My phone was in my pocket. I was hosting a big group of people here for football, and all of a sudden I looked at my phone and I had the scoop, and I had the text before Jeff Passan had it. So that was kind of a kick to the balls, but a lot of offseason left. I'll be breaking plenty of news, but that was a pretty rough way to start the winter, to say the least.
Well, we will not linger on it, but it does seem like you maybe have the same clock management issues as Nick Sirianni.
We will not tolerate Eagles slander on this podcast. What the heck, Adam?
That's what I've heard. I will be the one to break the 10-year Sirianni extension. I actually already tweeted it, so when that occurs, just refer back to me. But yes, look, Wacha's just the start of it. But pretty exciting to see a multi-year deal in the mega mid-millions coming out over the weekend. I don't think I expected that. One thing I did expect was Gerrit Cole opting out of his deal, which I think took a lot of people by surprise who maybe haven't been paying attention to the situation, just because, Gerrit Cole's not on the Yankees for a couple of days at the very least. That's sort of a shock to the system. But it's a weird opt-out where the Yankees have the ability to invalidate it by tacking on an extra year to Cole's contract. Now, that seemed like an obvious move entering 2024, but then Cole missed April and May. He came back. He was still great. He was great in the World Series despite not covering first base. His velocity was down. His whip is up a little bit, but then his velocity was 99 when he needed it in the World Series. He was keeping himself a little bit enclosed to make sure that he didn't bum that elbow out at the worst possible time. Weird year for Cole, but still a pretty great one. The Yankees could tack on the extra year. They could renegotiate to maybe lower his AAV, maybe make a Juan Soto deal slightly easier. That seems tough to believe considering he's a Scott Boras guy, but they could let him walk. They could. But I would be shocked if they hadn't already discussed how they were going to handle this before Cole opted out, given what he means to them and how much of a Yankee fan he is, just to be honest with everybody. I mean, I don't think he wants his Yankee career to end with what happened in Game 5. So my guess would be he stays, and my guess would be they've talked about it. But you do hear a lot of fans saying, oh, why would you pay for his regression years? The Yankees should let him walk and replace him with some other aces, which I hear you, but I don't know if they would replace him if they let him walk. Let me just say that. It would feel like a signal that they were going to maybe put all their eggs in Juan Soto's basket and cheap out a little bit on the rotation. But I will turn it over to Robert Murray now to discuss what he's hearing here. And the decision has to come down today from the Yankees side.
Yeah, it has to come down today. And my guess is that Cole is going to end up staying in the Bronx, and the Yankees are just going to end up adding another year to his contract. I believe it would be for $36 million, and he's already got 4 years and $144 million left on the deal. If he does indeed stay in the Bronx, or the Yankees end up making that decision to add the extra year, I think it's a no-brainer for them, because Cole he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's irreplaceable, especially when he's on the mound. That decision, as you said, is not as easy as it would have been even entering the year, especially considering that his health issues, and you're talking about a player who's going to be in the back half of his career by the time by the time his contract is already done at that point. So it's not an easy decision by any means, or it's not a slam dunk decision, but I fully expect the Yankees to keep Cole, and that would be the first domino of a very important offseason for them to figure out. Obviously, the Soto situation, to me, I mean, you have to keep Juan Soto if you're the Yankees. If losing Juan Soto would be inexcusable for them, and trying to explain that to the fan base would be an impossible job by Brian Cashman. And I think that would really, I don't want to say it would tarnish his legacy, but it would hurt. And I mean, we're talking a generational player. He traded all those prospects for him last year. Obviously got to the World Series, did not win it, but losing him now, and then even potentially being outbid by the Mets for Juan Soto services, that is a nightmare scenario for Brian Cashman and the Yankees. They cannot let it happen, but with Steve Cohen lurking in those deep pockets, absolutely firmly in the mix, you can never rule anything out. And that would be, it's setting up for Yankees versus Mets for Juan Soto. There's going to be plenty of other teams involved, don't get me wrong, but it's those two are going to be leading the pack for most of the way. And who knows if they get past, but it's going to be fascinating offseason talk for however long it lasts.
Yeah, like you said, I would be surprised if they just let Cole hit free agency. I understand that pitchers regress as they reach their late 30s. I understand there's an injury risk with every pitcher, aging or otherwise. I mean, I hear you, all of you who are like, they should just move on and get Corbin Burns. Well, it's not that simple. I mean, it takes two to tango. You can't just be like, don't worry, we let Cole go and we replaced him with Corbin Burns. Easy as pie. There are also clubhouse implications. Gerrit Cole is a leader of this team. Corbin Burns has never been on this team. Like, you should be keeping Gerrit Cole and supplementing him with other stars. Like, you're the New York Yankees. The Gerrit Cole contract that you already have should not preclude you from offering a lot of money for Juan Soto with $100 million coming off the books. It should also not preclude you from chasing Blake Snell or Max Fried or what have you. Again, I'm not saying the Yankees should go build an all-star team. I'm not saying they should run a $400 million payroll. But I'm just saying that Yankee fans out there who are like, we should be really careful with Cole's regression. I mean, you're describing every free agent contract. I hear you. I do. I promise. But the simplest solution is the best one. Just keep the ace you already have and then go try to get better. And they save a little money this weekend as well. They do decline that option on Anthony Rizzo. That was $17 million if they picked it up. $6 million buyout. So right now they save $11 million. I think feels safe to me to say he's probably gone and they figured out a way to save money at the margins. But curious your thoughts there. Any chance of reuniting at a smaller dollar value, or he's just kind of going to move elsewhere?
I mean, you can't rule anything out at this point of the year. I mean, the offseason is just beginning, and Rizzo is obviously extremely respected in that locker room. I don't think it was lost that he was playing. I don't think it was lost in the clubhouse that he was playing through the injuries that he was in the postseason and putting his health on the line. I mean, his fingers were broken. I mean, that's not a small deal by any means. But I also think it's very likely that there's going to be another team that ends up giving Rizzo a better opportunity or just more money. I think a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates makes a lot of sense, and that's just me speculating. That's not sources or anything. I want to make that abundantly clear. But they like having those stopgap options at first base. They did it last year with Rowdy Tellez. That did not work out to start the year. He ended up bouncing back, and then they DFA'd him before he was due a bonus, which that was really bad business. So I don't know if that's going to be in the back of the mind of some free agents this winter. I know that was not exactly the most highly thought of thing around the league, and I can't blame them. But I don't think it's ruled out that Rizzo can return to New York. I just don't think it's the most likely thing at this point.
Yeah, that is what it feels like to me as well. Moving on to a couple of other things that occurred, and we're going to get to some of your questions as well. But the Devin Williams news over the weekend, I think, talk about catch some people by surprise. The Brewers declining his expensive club option, but they also retain his rights, and they're going to arbitration, presumably, and banking on maybe a lower ARB salary after his injury. But this did make, I think, a lot of people think, hey, will he even get to arbitration with the Brewers? Will he be traded before he reaches it? And then it's somebody else's problem. That kind of feels like the most likely possibility to me, but I'm curious of your thoughts here. And the comments were popping up about this as well.
Yeah, I was told that this was probably the direction that the Brewers were going to go over the weekend, and it did not come as a surprise at all. The Brewers are always about trying to have value and trying to save at the margins, and this is the case where they'd end up doing that. His club option was for $10.5 million, and we're talking about his arbitration salary probably being in the $8 to $9 million range. So if they're able to save $1 million or $2 and they can invest that in other parts of the roster, I think that is something that they were absolutely willing to do, and they ended up doing it. And I'm really curious to see exactly where this leads, because I know there's been teams that have already checked in on Devin Williams this offseason. And he's definitely a trade candidate. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract. And we've seen the Brewers, they've traded Corbin Burns and they've traded Josh Hader when they've gotten to these parts of their contract. So I'm really curious to see if the Brewers end up doing it now. And you also got to wonder, because when the Brewers ended up having Corbin Burns and Josh Hader, they took them to arbitration, and the relationship soured right thereafter. Both players, I was around for both cases, and the players were really upset. And you wonder what this kind of move for Williams in declining this club option and then trying to take him to arbitration for a lesser salary, if that could end up souring the relationship as well. It's something to keep in mind, but I think Williams' trade talk this offseason is only just getting started, and this is just going to add fuel to that fire.
Yeah, not totally surprising. Odd to see it develop, but probably just leading down a predictable path here. Any other option decisions happen to surprise you? Because it did feel pretty boilerplate, like, oh, Marco Gonzalez isn't going to pitch this year and the Pirates decline his option. Interesting. But any others that you're keeping an eye on? I mean, that either did happen or that could still occur?
Yeah, there's a couple that I'm keeping an eye on. Nathan Eovaldi in Texas is one that I've been keeping an eye on. I firmly expect him to decline it to become a free agent. And the other one is Ryan O'Hearn. He, to me, I think the Orioles end up keeping him and picking up that option, because he was a really effective player for them last year. And he's been a real nice find for that front office at the salary that he's making. So I had someone put it in the 60-40 category for saying yes, for 60% yes, that he'd end up getting his option picked up. So we'll see. But that one really stands out to me. I know we're going to be talking about Bellinger here in a little bit because somebody in the Discord ended up asking about that. So should I just dive right into that, Adam?
Yeah, let's go right in because next stop before we answer a couple of the questions in the comments was opening up the notebook a bit, and obviously we've got Cody Bellinger question, thoughts on anything, any dope that you may have there.
Yeah, as far as Bellinger goes, this was always the direction that this was headed in. I know there was some speculation online that he could maybe end up declining his player option to go to free agency, but that was never really, I don't think that was ever really a thought or ever really like a strong possibility, I should say. I think that's better phrasing for it. And $27.5 million for a player with a 2.2 B WAR last year is really good for the player. And it ensures that he stays in a place that he's comfortable. He is making $27.5 million this year, which is really, really good. And we're also talking about a guy who, if he ended up declining it, I had some different estimates for his free agency of like 4 years for $80 million, somewhere in that ballpark. I had one person even expect lower than that. So it was really kind of a no-brainer that he would end up picking up his option and returning to Chicago. Obviously, that hurts their financial flexibility in Chicago. I mean, that's a big part of the payroll going to a player is providing, as I said, 2.2 B WAR. But that's a reality that the Cubs now face and adds another layer to this offseason for Jed Hoyer in that front office that they're going to have to navigate. But there's absolutely no question about it. They need to be better next year. I hope that Jed Hoyer ends up investing heavily into the roster, because you end up shelling off for Craig Counsell like you did last year. And you have a roster they have pieces, but they need more in order to compete in that division, even in the NL. And I hope that Hoyer does it.
Yeah, this is just the first step. Hopefully it means that there's a culture being built there, but obviously it does stick the Cubs with an expenditure that they, maybe weren't sure they were going to have. Let's toss to the comments a bit here. We've got some questions. Comic Things asking if teams have been calling on the Red Sox for their outfielders like Gold Glover Willie Abreu and Jarren Duran. Also, a couple questions here on the Red Sox, maybe opening the pockets for Corbin Burnes, etc. But just any early indications heading into the GM meetings of what the Red Sox offseason may begin looking like?
Yeah, I've been pretty consistent on this podcast that I'm always in wait and see mode when it comes to that ownership group. I'm a big believer in their leadership in Craig Breslow and Alex Cora. I think they are really strong pieces, especially Cora. He's a proven really good manager. He's been able to get the most out of that talent on that roster. And Breslow, he ended up building a roster last year, or investing in pieces that ended up overachieving compared to what I think many people thought about them going into the season. And now we're looking at, I think, an offseason where they absolutely need to invest heavily in that rotation and build pieces. And that's why you end up bringing a guy in like Craig Breslow. He's got a pitching background, a very strong one. He did it as a player, then also with the Chicago Cubs. And I think he'll get that pitching staff in the right spot and even more improved going into next year. I'm still skeptical about how much ownership is going to be willing to invest into that roster, whether it's like a big name like a Corbin Burnes, because his contract could end up exceeding around like $200 million. Or that's at least an early thought. You never know when it comes to free agency, but I would imagine Boris is going to be aiming for that. And I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to the Red Sox ownership group, because they've proven in years past that they've not been willing to invest significant dollars into this roster. And if they end up doing it, great, but I just remain skeptical is all.
All Yankee fans wanting them to go get rid of Cole and drop $200 million on Corbin Burnes too. His K percentage has been declining since 2020 and precipitously since 2021. So again, you could dissect any of these free agent contracts in the same way that you're dissecting potential regression. I'd pay for Corbin Burnes, but again, yeah. You make the stats say whatever you want them to say. But then occasionally you have complete surprises, like Andrew Lee asking how likely is Jurickson Profar returning to the Padres. This was a guy who got a 1-year flyer entering 2023, bombed out, came back to the Padres and became an all-star. So now his price has risen again. I don't know if it has risen precipitously. You're not looking at, a mega deal here. But what do you feel about the Padres Profar fit, or any estimations for his contract?
Yeah, as far as Profar goes, I think he's a real possibility to return to San Diego. And this is my reasoning why. And he's going to end up making a lot more than he ended up doing last year, because the year that he had, I mean, all-star caliber year, he was a real strong piece for them from game 1 to game 162, and even in the playoffs as well. But I remember last year's free agency for him. He ended up having offers from other teams in addition to the Padres at the end, and it came down to decision time, and these offers were more lucrative elsewhere than they were in San Diego. But he valued his relationship with AJ Preller. He ended up valuing the playing time that he was going to get in San Diego. He valued how much or how comfortable he was in San Diego, and he ended up turning down more money elsewhere. It wasn't much more, don't get me wrong, but it was still more that he turned down. And he ended up having one of the best years of his career. And he's going to end up, to me, he's going to end up getting a strong multi-year deal. I think the Padres will absolutely be in play. It's not a guarantee by any means, but his comfortability in San Diego is a very real thing. The Padres value him. He values the Padres. And when there's that kind of mutual interest, then I think that could be where deals are made. But again, no promises whatsoever.
I feel like we have to tie in Roki Sasaki here too, just because talk about things that need clarifying. He turned down an offer from the Marines, the Chibalate Marines, not the actual Marines, his Japanese team. So a lot of people are saying, oh, okay, they're buzzing. Is he coming to LA? Is he coming to San Diego? I just saw Ken Rosenthal say the Dodgers are going to be strong in on him if he does get posted. But from what I understand, we don't know that he's going to get posted yet. And he's turned down offers from his Japanese team in the past and then ended up back on that roster. So just to clarify, it's interesting. It makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit. And obviously we know the Dodgers are going to be involved if he posts, but we don't really know much more than that right now.
No. And that was the point I was going to make on this is I'm going to keep it very brief and very simple. If Roki Sasaki is posted, I would absolutely watch the Dodgers. I will leave it at that.
Yeah. But we will have to keep our eyes peeled. We don't certainly know what's going on. I would agree with.
And then also, I'll answer this one too from Connor Wright. Why
I was about to ask. Yeah.
All right, because I fully anticipate Montas, him not having his mutual option picked up by the crew, and I firmly expect him to have a strong market in free agency at this point. That is the understanding that I'm under right now.
Perfect. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off? Obviously, crazy day and the ground is being laid at the GM meetings starting tonight. Anybody you're anticipating connecting with when you get there too?
I have already got dinner plans lined up. I already have a bunch of different meetings set up as well. It is going to basically be I land, I drop my stuff off at my hotel, and I'm just going to go to work right away. And it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long few days. So I apologize in advance if I'm really tired and socially just kind of done on Friday because these kind of take a lot of audio, but I am so here for it. GM meetings, I'm going to tell you right now, they are not often the place where a lot of deals are made. There have been some in years past, don't get me wrong. But I would not expect anything too crazy here. Watch it. There's going to be like 25 signings that are happening now. I say that, but no, I would not expect much movement, but these are where the groundwork is laid for free agency and where the groundwork for them is made. So very important times. As far as comic things, I see you asking about collusion. I know Kike Hernandez ended up mentioning it last year, and that was very brave of him for doing that. That's a real tough one for the league to end up kind of having proof on that happening. So I would not expect anything too much from that or anything really. But I expect this offseason to end up being more active earlier than last year, because I don't know if it could really be slower than it was last year. That was pretty tough.
Yeah, and remember, talk about groundwork being laid. We had Matt Chapman, at last year's GM meetings, walking around talking to the Giants brass, and we're like, "Hey, something, nothing, what's going on?" And then a couple weeks later, it actually took a really long time, but nice deal with an opt-out. He ends up coming back and renegotiating that. So, stay tuned. Some breadcrumbs will certainly get dropped this week. If nothing else, stay tuned to Robert's Twitter, of course. And then Friday's show, we are excited to talk about with a little more clarity some information on the upcoming offseason. Robert Murray, thank you for joining me in the morning on such short notice. And this was fun as hell. And Fridays, whether there's energy or not, we are entering the best time of the year, and I'm psyched to do it.
No, I'm very excited to do it as well. I appreciate you doing the early show with me today. Considering my travel schedule, I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Very active comment section again today, which we love. I would definitely stay tuned to my Twitter account today. And going forward, put tweet notifications on there because I should be, unless something, I'm not putting my phone in my pocket. I learned my lesson, but I should be breaking some news today. Very exciting times. So stay tuned for that. And we will, we'll see you on Friday here. And my tweets hopefully we'll be firing off plenty of tweets in the meantime.
Yeah, and turn on your tweet notifications for me, too, if you want to watch me arguing with Yankee fans with 18 followers over whether it's a good idea to let Gerrit Cole walk or not, which is sure to occur over the course of the entire afternoon and into the evening, no matter what happens. You can bait me with a tweet, like some other folks on Earth. If you come into my mentions, I will be responding to you, even though I don't want to. But until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. He is Robert Murray. He's got some work to do this week. We'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, everybody.